When most people see this book, they think of armies, battlefields, and ancient history. They're told it's about war, a dusty relic for generals and historians. For years, I believed that too. I thought business was a fight, a head-on collision where the biggest and strongest player always wins. And for years, that's exactly why I was losing. But what if I told you its greatest secrets have nothing to do with fighting? That this 2,500-year-old text is one of the most ruthless and effective guides to financial victory ever written? What if the core lesson isn't how to wage war, but how to win so decisively that the battle's over before it even begins? I was on the brink of failure, outmatched, outspent, and completely outgunned. My competition was a Goliath, and I was just some guy with a slingshot quickly running out of stones. Then I started applying the principles from these pages, not to start a war, but to end one. And it didn't just save my business, it made me rich. This is how I did it and how you can too. A few years ago, my situation was, let's call it dire. I'd poured every cent of my savings and then some into a tech startup. We had a killer product, a small passionate team, and what I thought was a rock-solid plan. The problem? Our main competitor was a corporate behemoth. Their marketing budget was bigger than my company's entire valuation. For every one step we took, they took 10. They could afford to lose more money in a single month than I could hope to make in an entire year. So naturally, we tried to fight them on their terms. We ran digital ads, they blanketed the entire internet. We offered a little discount, they launched a massive sale that made our prices look pathetic. It was a classic war of attrition and our resources were evaporating. I was pulling 100-hour weeks, fueled by cheap coffee and a rising tide of panic. My team was burning out, we were fighting a prolonged war, and as Sun Tzu says, there is no instance of a nation benefiting from prolonged warfare. I was learning that lesson the hard way. My weapons were getting dull, my morale was shot, and my bank account looked like a crater on a battlefield. I was ready to wave the white flag. It was in that moment of absolute desperation, endlessly scrolling through articles on strategy, that I stumbled upon a quote from Sun Tzu. It didn't just hit me like a lightning bolt, it redrew the entire map. The first principle I applied, and honestly the most important, is this. The supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. For months, I had been trying to fight an air force with a pocket knife. I was attacking my competitor's greatest strength, their massive budget, head-on. It was financial suicide. Sun Tzu's wisdom isn't about matching your enemy's power, it's about making their power irrelevant. So I asked myself a different question. What if I stopped playing their game and invent my own? Instead of a price war, what if I started a value war they were completely unprepared for? My competitor was huge, which also meant they were slow, clumsy, and impersonal. Their customer service was a running joke. Their product was a one-size-fits-all solution that didn't really fit anyone perfectly. That was their weakness. So we killed our expensive, useless advertising. We stopped competing on price, period. Instead, we went narrow and deep. We repositioned our company to serve a very specific high-need niche in the market. A group of customers the corporate giant was ignoring because they weren't a big enough prize for their massive operation. We became the specialists, the artisans. We offered ridiculously good, personal customer service, onboarding every new client ourselves. We built a community, not just a mailing list. We didn't try to steal their 10,000 generic customers. We focused on winning 100 loyal fans who needed exactly what we had. We didn't fight them. We just went where they weren't. We created our own uncontested market space. The result? Our revenue stabilized, then it started climbing. Our clients were fiercely loyal because we solved a specific problem the big guys couldn't be bothered with. We had won a decisive victory, not by firing a single shot in the price war, but by simply leaving the battlefield. The second principle that saved my skin was this. Victorious warriors win first and then go to war, while defeated warriors go to war first and then seek to win. My initial strategy was all action, no real thought. I was that defeated warrior, flailing around in the middle of a battle I was already losing. Sun Tzu teaches that victory is decided long before the fighting starts. It's about cold, hard calculation and preparation. So I got obsessed with knowing things. I took his lesson. If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. And I made it my mantra. Knowing yourself meant a brutal, honest audit of our company. We had almost no cash, but we were fast. And we knew our little niche inside and out. Knowing your enemy meant I studied my competitor not as a rival, but as a system. I read their quarterly reports. I scoured forums for their customer complaints. I looked at who they were hiring and firing. I wanted to understand their strategy, their corporate baggage, everything. And this is where deception comes in. Sun Tzu states all warfare is based on deception. In business, this isn't about lying, it's about controlling perception and moving quietly. While our competitors saw us as a tiny failing startup in the main market, we were silently becoming the dominant force in our new profitable niche. We appeared weak where we were no longer even competing, which made them arrogant. We were becoming incredibly strong in a territory they had written off. They thought we were fading away. In reality, we were building a fortress on new ground and stacking cash. We won first, then we prepared for the next war. The third principle is a lifeline in any volatile market. In the midst of chaos, there is also opportunity. About a year into our new strategy, the market took a nosedive. The economy soured, and our giant competitor, with its insane overhead and angry shareholders, panicked. They announced massive layoffs, cut non-essential projects, and pulled back on everything that wasn't their core product. For them, it was pure chaos. For us, thanks to Sun Tzu, it was the ultimate opportunity. While they were retreating, we advanced. Because we had followed the other principles, we had no debt, a healthy cash reserve from our niche, and a deep understanding of the terrain. We were ready. The downturn created a vacuum. Ridiculously talented people laid off from big companies were suddenly available. Customers who were dropped by the big corporations were desperately looking for a new stable partner. We moved with what Sun Tzu calls speed and preparation. We hired some of the best talent in the industry for a fraction of what they would have cost a year earlier. We aggressively courted the clients our competitor had just abandoned, offering them security and dedicated service when they needed it most. The chaos that was crippling our competition became the fuel for our greatest period of growth. We didn't just survive the downturn, we absolutely thrived in it. We captured more market share in 6 months of chaos than we could have in 5 years of stability. We struck where they were vulnerable, turning their moment of weakness into our defining strength. Look, applying these principles changed more than my bank account. It fundamentally rewired my brain. I stopped seeing business as a brawl and started seeing it as a chess match. The art of war teaches you that real power isn't about the size of your budget or the strength of your brand, but the brilliance of your strategy. It's about knowing when to fight and, more importantly, when not to. It's about using your mind to win battles that seem impossible. I went from the brink of bankruptcy to building a fortune I never thought possible. I didn't get lucky. I didn't have a secret rich uncle. I had a 2,500-year-old book and the willingness to see it not for what people said it was, but for what it truly is, a manual for victory. The victory just happens to be financial. These ideas are timeless because they're not about technology or trends. They're about human nature, strategy, and psychology. They're just as powerful for your personal finances, your investments, or your career as they are for a boardroom. You don't have to feel outmatched and outgunned. You can reframe the battle. You can choose your own turf. You can win without fighting. You have the ability to use this ancient wisdom to hit your own goals. The only question is, will you? If this breakdown helped you see strategy in a new light, subscribe for more lessons on how to dominate your financial world. And I really want to know, so drop it in the comments. Which principle from the Art of War are you going to apply first?